Hey everyone, this is Heidi with another knitting video tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to merge knitting and sewing with the Kitchener stitch. One of my favorite ways to join knitting ends is the Kitchener stitch. And to do the Kitchener stitch, you're going to have a few things set up on your needles. Right here in front of me, I have my two knitting needles sitting parallel to each other with what's called live stitches on each needle. So these are open stitches that if I pulled on the tail, they would unravel like a sweater, because sweaters are knit. That's where the saying comes from. So when we're going to join these two ends of knitting, the setup work we need to do is to have both of our sets of live stitches resting parallel to each other, wrong sides facing each other and right sides facing out. And on my needles here I have stockinette stitch, so knit one row, purl one row for your reference. To start doing the Kitchener stitch to graft these ends together, we're going to first take our working yarn, which we've cut, and thread onto a tapestry needle and run it through the stitch on the needle closest to us purlwise as our setup stitch. And then we'll draw that tail all the way through. Then on the needle furthest from us, we're going to run our needle through that first stitch as if to knit. So front to back through the front of the loop. Then we will draw that tail all the way through. That's the one time we'll ever do those two setup stitches. Now for the remainder of our stitches on our needles, we're going to knit, purl, purl, knit. But since we're sewing, the knit, purl, purl, knit is how you think of running your sewing needle through the loops on your knitting needles. Let's take a look at how that works. All right, so right after those first two setup stitches, we're going to do knit, purl, purl, knit all the way down our needles. So on the needle closest to us, we're going to do our first knit purl. So the knit involves putting your tapestry needle knitwise from front to back through the first stitch on the needle closest to you and sweeping it off the end. Then the purl is bringing the needle purlwise through the next stitch closest to you on the needle. And then we will sew through that and draw the tail all the way through both loops. So that's our knit purl. And then working on the far needle, we'll do a purl knit. So we will bring the needle through purlwise and sweep that stitch off the end. And then we will go knitwise through the next stitch, drawing that tail all the way through. And you want it to be tight, but not crazy tight, as with most things in knitting. So next, as we continue all the way down, we'll keep going knit, purl, purl, knit. So knit and sweep, purl, and draw through on the needle closest to us. And then on the far needle, purl and sweep, and knit and draw the tail through. So basically, the pattern with the knit, purl, purl, knit is sweeping off the first stitch of each needle and then setting up the second stitch for being swept off in the next step. So knit and sweep, purl, purl and sweep, knit. Knit and sweep, purl, purl and sweep, knit. And so as you work, a good way to check that you're still on track is by making sure before every new knit purl, the same number of loops is on the first and the second needle. So in this case, we're halfway through with 4 loops on the needle closest to us and 4 loops on the needle furthest from us. So knit and sweep, purl, purl and sweep, knit. Knit and sweep, purl, purl and sweep, knit. And we're just about done. Knit and sweep, purl, drawing the tail through with one stitch left on the needle closest to us. Purl and sweep, knit with one stitch left on each needle. So we did those 2 setup stitches at the beginning of this seam. So now we're going to need to do 2 closure steps on this one, which is really simple. It's just knit and sweep, and now there's nothing on that needle. Purl and sweep, and there's nothing on the other needle, and draw the tail through. So on this sample here, I made just a little tube for demonstration's sake, but this stitch would be great if you are making a cowl, because we've got a little cylinder right here. And with that Kitchener stitch, we have seamlessly, with a seam, grafted the live ends of our work together into a tube. So don't forget knit-purl, purl-knit to graft your knitting ends together seamlessly. Give us a like if you like what you saw, comment if you have any questions, and don't forget to subscribe for even more great knitting video tutorials.